Hi lovelies, you're welcome back to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome back and I appreciate. So I'm going to be drafting a Queen Anne neckline corset with basque waistline. Okay, so this is my pattern paper. I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder to my bust line. So this first line here is my shoulder line. I came down to my bust line. I mark the line there, and then from my shoulder to my under bust line, from my shoulder to my waist line. Okay, so now from my waistline here, I'm going to come down by 5 inches. Now this is for the basque effect. Okay, so I came down by 5 inches depending on how deep you want the basque to be. Then from the basque line, I came down by half inch. Now this half inch is for the joining allowance with the skirt part because this is for a gown. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and rule a straight line on the half inch for the allowance to join the skirt and the top. So the shoulder measurement I'm using is 18 inches divided by 2 will give me 9 inches. So I'm going to mark it on my shoulder line. Now I'm going to take 3.5 inches for the neck wideness, and then I'll come down by 3 inches for the neck depth. Now this particular dress is not a high neck dress, okay, so I'm just using 3 inches just to create that neck effect. Okay, now go ahead now and connect it this way. As you can see, the next thing I'm going to do is from that 9 inches I took for the shoulder measurement, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and then from that 1 inch I'll go ahead to connect it. This is for my shoulder slope. I'll connect it to the shoulder line. Now from that my shoulder slope point, I'm going to come down to the armhole circumference, which I divided by 2, and I have 9 inches. So I'll go ahead and rule a straight line on this point to the other point here. So after doing that, I'll go ahead and roll another straight line here. So this straight line I'm rolling is for my chest line. Okay, so this particular dress is not mine, it's for a client. Okay, so I'll go ahead and divide what I have for the armhole circumference. So I'll divide it by 2 and I'll mark the midpoint. From the midpoint, I'm going to go in by half of an inch, okay? And then I'm going to take her bust circumference divided by 4. I'll mark the point there, and then I'll go ahead to connect the armhole this way. This way. The next thing I'm going to do is her nipple to nipple is 9 inches, so I'm going to divide it by 2 and I have 4.5 inches. Now I'll go ahead from her bust line. I'm going to mark the 4.5 inches all the way to the basque line. Okay, then I'll go ahead to connect the points together with my ruler. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to label this here my center front, and then the other side my side front. Now the next thing I'm going to do is on my basque waistline on the center front, beside the dart leg, I'm going to mark 1 inch. Then on the side front, beside the dart leg on the basque waistline, I'm going to mark another 1 inch. Now on my under bust line, I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides, okay, on the dart leg, and then I'll go ahead and connect the points together this way. Now the next thing I'm going to do is from my bust line here on the dart leg, I came down by half inch. Now I usually come down by 1 inch, but for this tutorial I came down by half inch because I want this to be a little bit cupped and a little bit pointed. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and connect the points together this way. Now if you don't want it to be too pointed, please go ahead and come down by 1 inch from the that leg on the bust line. Okay, now I'll go ahead and connect it this way. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide what I have left for the shoulder. So what I have left, I'm going to divide by 2, then I will get the midpoint this way. So always divide it that way. Okay, now I'm going to connect it to this point here. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and connect it with my ruler. Now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to label this first. This is my chest line, please do not forget. Now from this my chest line, I'm going to be coming up by 1.5 inches, and this is just to cover up the cleavage. Now if you want yours to be too covered, you can go up by 2 inches, but I think 1.5 inches is okay. Or if you don't want yours to be too covered, 1 inch is okay as well. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to label this my upper chest line. That is what I usually call it. Now from my center front on my upper chest line, I'm going to mark 1 inch. Then from the side front, I'm going to mark 1 inch. Now this totally depends on you. If you don't want this to be too tight, you can go ahead and mark 0.75 or half inch on both sides. Okay, now I'll go ahead and connect it this way. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do now is on this my upper chest line. At this point here, I'm going to come down by half inch, and then from that half inch that I came down by, I'm going to go in by another half inch. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and connect it this way. Okay, now it depends on how deep you want the middle of your cup to be. Okay, if you want it to go below, go down to your chest line, is fine. Now I'll go ahead and connect it this way, this side front this way. So already took her bust circumference measurement. I'm going to be taking her waist circumference measurement divided by 4. I'll mark the point and then I'll go ahead to replace the dart intake of 2 inches. Always do that, it's very important. And then on the basque line, I'm going to take our hip circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart intake of 2 inches. So on this chest line here, I'm going to replace the dart intake of 2 inches here, and then I'll replace it. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and do it this way. Then I'll go ahead to connect the body measurement. So I'm using my pencil to connect the body measurement. This is the actual body measurement. The next thing I'm going to do now is to add the allowance. Okay, so you can go ahead and make use of 1.5 inches. It depends on what you want actually. So mine, I'm making use of 2 inches. Okay, now I'll go ahead and connect now with my marker, and then I will label this 2 inches part my allowance. So for her side that, I'm going to come down by 1 inch on the body measurement. Okay, this is for her side that. Now this is the difference between her shoulder to waist at the back and her shoulder to waist at the front. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and connect it this way before extending it to the allowance line. Okay, so I'm going to be closing this off, so I will go ahead to indicate it that I'm going to be closing this up. Okay, now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to close up this particular side here, and then from the side front here at the upper chest line, I'll go in by half of an inch. Now I'll go ahead from that half of an inch, I'll connect it this way to the neck wideness on the shoulder line. Now this has formed my Queen Anne neck line. Okay, so I'm just going to label this my yoke. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and start cutting this. But before doing that, I'm just going to cut through the bust line to this point here. And then I'll go ahead to close the side dart. So I'm just going to tape this down in place. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and divide what I have from this point here to this point. Okay, I'll divide it by 2, and then I'll mark the point there. So now I'm going to connect that point to my under bust point this way with my curve rule. Connect this other point here to this point that I have at this point that I went in by half of an inch below my upper chest line point. I'll connect it this way to that half inch I went in by. Now this has formed the cup 1 and the cup 2. So I'm just going to indicate this where it's going to be facing. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to kiss the this part together. That is the 1 inch beside the main dart leg together. that is the side front and the center front line together, and then I'll go ahead to create my basque line. But before doing that, I will come down by ½ inch, and this ½ inch is for my stitching allowance. Okay, and I mark it on the actual body measurement. Now I will go ahead and connect it this way, meeting the ½ inch joining allowance at the down part that is below the basque waistline. Now I'm going to extend the stitching allowance to the main allowance of the dress. Okay, now I'll go ahead to cut this out. So I'm cutting out the yoke first. So I'm going to be cutting ×2 of that yoke. Now I'll go ahead to cut out the center front this way. And then I will cut the side front this way. And this is all for the front pattern. So I'm just cutting the second cup. And this is all for the front pattern. I'll go ahead to draft the back pattern, okay? Now for the back pattern, I've marked out the measurement that I need, but I mark out 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance, and then I roll a straight line there. So her shoulder to her waist at the front is 19 inches, while her shoulder to her waist at the back is 18 inches, okay? So I went ahead to mark the 18 inches point. So the 1 inch difference is what I use as the front side dart, okay? Now, after doing that, I went ahead to mark her bust line as well. Now, this does not have any basque waistline at the back. So I'm going to take her shoulder measurement point, and then I'll take the neck wideness. I made use of 3.5 inches. You can make use of 3 inches for the wideness, okay? And then I came down by 2 inches. Okay, you can make use of 1.5 as well. It depends on the depth and the width that you want. Okay, now I'll go ahead from this shoulder point. I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and then I'll go ahead to connect it this way. Now, after doing that, I'm going to take the armhole circumference, which I divided by 2, and I got 9 inches. I'll go ahead and connect that point, that 9 inches point, to the shoulder slope. Please connect it in a straight way, okay? Now, I'll go ahead and connect it this way, and now this is my chest line for the back pattern. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to take her bust circumference divided by 4. I will mark the point. Remember, I'm taking every measurement from the zipper allowance line, okay? I'll go ahead now and connect the back armhole this way. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to take her nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which we have 4.5 inches. After dividing 9 inches by 2, I'll mark the points on every line I have here, and then I'll go ahead to connect the points together. So after I'm done connecting it, on the waistline here, I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides. Now I'll go ahead and connect it this way. So I connected the ½ inch on both sides of the dart leg this way. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to take the waist circumference divided by 4. And then I'll replace the dart intake of 1 inch. So I'm going to mark the point and then I will go ahead to connect it this way. So if you notice, the back pattern does not have under bust line because it's not necessary, okay? Now after doing that, I'm going to take my allowance of 2 inches. And then I'll go ahead to label it my allowance. So let me quickly explain this. I don't want the dress to have an outer rope at the back. That's the reason why I'm drafting it with a zipper allowance, because I'm going to be making use of an inner rope to snatch the waist. Now, if you want an outer rope, go ahead and remove the zipper allowance part, okay? And then minus 2 inches for the rope spacing. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is from my chest line here, I'm going to come up by ½ inch on this, closer to the zip part. Then beside the armhole part, I'm going to go up by 1.5 inches or 2 inches. And then I will go ahead and connect it this way. Now this is to give it a little bit curve at the back pattern, okay? You can go ahead and connect it to your chest line itself instead of going up by ½ inch from your chest line. Now I'll go ahead and extend this to my zipper allowance line. So I'm going to extend my dart leg to this new curve line I have on the back pattern. After doing that, I will go in from this point here by 1 inch, and then I will go ahead and connect it this way. So from my neck depth, I'll mark 1 inch, and then I'll connect it this way with my pencil first, then use my marker to outline it properly. Now this is the shape that I want for the back pattern. Now after doing that, I'm going to mark out 1/4 inch here, that is 0.25 inch here, and this is to avoid gaping. Now on the waistline zip allowance parts, I went in by 1/2 inch, and then I'll go ahead to connect it this way, and this is to avoid zipper bulginess. So I'm going to be cutting this out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut the back pattern. But before doing that, I'm going to label this my yoke, that's my back yoke, and I'm going to be cutting ×2 of the back yoke. Okay, now I'll go ahead and cut this out. Now, if you notice, I did not add stitching allowance below the waistline, so please do that when you are drafting yours, or you can add it on your fabric when you are cutting. Okay, now this is all for the back pattern. I'm going to cut ×2 of this, just like I said earlier, ×2 of the yoke, and then ×2 of the back pattern. And then this is all for the back pattern. I'm going to bring the front piece. So for the side front, I'm going to cut ×2 of it. And then for the center front, I'm going to be cutting the center front on fold. So I'm just indicating it. And then for the cups, I'm going to be cutting 2 pieces of the 1, 2 pieces of the 2. And then the front yoke, I'm going to be cutting it ×2. And this is all for my Queen Anne neckline corset with basque waist line, as you can see. So thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, comment, and share. And I will see you in the sewing tutorial video. Thanks for watching again. Bye for now.